Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Big updates today from around the F1 world, especially from the Fernando Alonso side. The two-time world champion stating his new teammate Lance Stroll is potentially a future world champion in the making. Supremely talented, certainly in wet weather. Is he saying this because he genuinely believes it and he believes he might have a hard time from Stroll this year? Or is he saying it because of his teammate's relation to the man who employs him? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Just wanted to mention here, this is the Alfa Romeo, the beautiful new Alfa Romeo coming out of the garage here at the circuit Barcelona de Catalunya, whatever exactly it is, or Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, I think is the technical name. And here they are in Spain, of course, doing some testing because that's what they like to do in Spain before the season begins. Alfa Romeo, certainly. The car looks absolutely stunning. One thing to note here as the car drives out the garage is the, I think it's Valtteri Bottas in the car here, number 77, is the floor of the car is distinctly different to what we saw in the reveal just a couple of days ago. We can see here there's not the same spoke design in the vortex generators that we saw the other day, and it's quite interesting to note actually, because teams often will throw some trickery around like this before the season begins, where they might reveal something in their launch car which actually was the real car, but the features on that launch car might have been features they thought up months ago and have since abandoned and don't think they're a particularly good idea, such that other teams might see the launch and think, damn, Alfa Romeo, they're trying this, I guess we've got to at least think about it, consider it, put resources into it, whereas Alfa Romeo have actually already thought about that idea and rejected it months ago, but still put it on their launch car just to, you know, throw a spanner in the works. So teams like to do this kind of trickery, but Alfa Romeo seem to have taken a different step here, unless, of course, they're going to bring another new car for their, well, when they go to Bahrain. Guanyu, of course, and Valtteri Bottas on track in what is certainly Spain today with this grandstand on the right-hand side. Another update from Alfa Romeo actually on their reliability. We know that a large part of their issues with reliability were their engines, of course, supplied by Ferrari, and exhaust and various other things that went wrong. They had a lot of reliability gremlins. Now, as I say, a large part of that was probably Ferrari's fault, but they do say there are some other issues they might have been able to resolve here. They certainly had some issues with their clutch, right? And, you know, their starts weren't particularly good, potentially because of their clutch integration with the powertrain. So there were some problems that they might well have been able to resolve here. They're confident they have. Whether these words will backfire, I guess, remains to be seen. Another big update, though, on the Red Bull side of the story. Yesterday, we discussed that Ferrari threw a bit of a hissy fit, and maybe understandably so, for Red Bull Ford being considered a brand new engine supplier going into 2026. Now, that status has not been revoked, but they've now been only given partial status, but partial being almost full status, as in they'll receive 90% of the benefits. So for 2026, the incumbent engine manufacturers, the Mercedes, the Ferraris, the Renaults, etc., they, and the Hondas, of course, I guess as well, they will not get any new advantage for the new regulations. However, for a manufacturer like Audi, they want to say, you know what, Audi, you're brand new, we'll give you some extra spending, some extra time, some extra stuff like this. Now, Red Bull say, guys, we're brand new as well. Red Bull powertrains never made an engine before on their own, and Ferrari are like, hang on a second, guys, you've made one basically with Honda for a few years at this point, you know what you're doing already, you should not be granted the same privileges as Audi are being granted. However, they're not given all the 100% advantages, but they're given most of them, so they're getting some extra spending power, they're getting extra dyno time to prepare, just like Audi are. So they're getting an extra 10 mil to spend in 23, 10 mil in 24, 5 mil in 25, and they can also deploy an additional 15 mil in capital expenditure over that period. So Audi, of course, is clearly a newcomer, but Red Bull Powertrain's newcomer status has been called into question, certainly by Ferrari, given their links with Honda. Now, they're going to get 90% of their allocation. The only 10% they lose is for their ERS contribution, that I think they've agreed that, okay, yeah, they have kind of worked on that stuff before, but it seems interesting to me that Ferrari were refusing to attend meetings because they wanted Red Bull Powertrains to be considered a brand, you know, not a brand new supplier, that they've still been given 90% of what they would have done otherwise, at least according to these sources. So I can't imagine that Ferrari are thrilled about that one either, and if that is the case, then, you know, maybe expect more drama about this yet. These are the new race suits here for Mercedes going forward as well. I can't really tell any differences to last year, same colour, same type of stuff, but at least maybe the car will look different, unlike the RB19 we saw. But one car that will be looking different and we'll see over the coming days is the Aston Martin, right? And Alonso says he's very confident about the project. I see this project as a winning one. It's not a matter of if the team will win, it's a matter of when, a matter of time until Aston Martin is winning races and championships. Now, whether he's still there at Aston Martin, if and when they potentially are winning championships, we shall see. But he's confident that within 2 or 3 years, they can get to that point, but maybe he'll be long retired and it'll be Mr. Lance Stroll that'll be the one to deliver the World Championship for Aston Martin. That's what Alonso believes. Now, that's what he says he believes. Whether he truly believes this and is saying it for other reasons, we shall discuss. Of course, you guys well know back in Austin, where there was a huge collision between Stroll and Alonso. Alonso was going for the overtake. Stroll made a very late defensive move. Alonso plowed into the back of him, went up into the sky, was lucky not to flip over backwards, somehow survived. Well, he obviously survived the incident, but the car survived the incident. He got back to the pits, changed out the front wing and went again and made an incredible comeback drive, I think, to P6 in the end. Then there was the drama with the demotion and all this, and then it was eventually reversed. But after that race, he said, you know what, Stroll, wasn't really your fault, just a racing incident. Now, I kind of doubt he would have said that if he wasn't teaming with Stroll in the upcoming season, especially given his relationships with Stroll's father, Lawrence, who actually owns the company. So Alonso says, I've known Lance for 11 years. We met in 2012 when I was at Ferrari. He was in the academy, and I've known his father, Lawrence, for many years as well. He's a great friend of mine, and of course, kind of also his boss at the moment. I went to his house in Canada. In Lance, the team has a driver that's super young, super talented, and has the possibility to be world champion. To see him achieve that and have played a part in that, whether that's behind the wheel or not, will be very special for me. He has the speed, he has the talent, he has shown it many times, especially in the wet conditions. I remember Lance's pole position in Turkey 2020 and some of his other excellent performances in the wet. To perform at that level in difficult conditions, you have to have a special feeling with the car. Now, I do actually agree that Lance Stroll, I think, is somewhat underrated. People don't really like Lance Stroll, and I can understand why. The daddy's money thing, he gets into a fair few crashes. He's not a particularly likable personality, but I do think he's better than people are giving him credit for. Of course, Mike Crack, also of the team, said something similar recently that said, you know what, he's actually doing better against Vettel than people expected him to do, and might do the same against Alonso. Alonso also goes on to say that the team is determined to become a championship contender. We've got the ambition, got the investment, got the factory, got the talent, and then there's the name Aston Martin that, of course, is a massive and iconic brand in motorsport. So this was his victory, of course, back in Turkey, Istanbul 2020. Well, it wasn't a victory, it was a pole position, and then didn't win the race. But he's had a few podiums in his time, of course, during the pink Mercedes days of racing points. Since it's been Aston Martin, not quite so competitive, but maybe they'll get there at some point in the future. So what do you guys think about Lance Stroll? Because I think he's a driver that is a bit underrated, right? As I say, people don't particularly like him, but he actually, I think, puts up a better fight against many than people really give him credit for. He is especially good, I think, in wet conditions, as Alonso is saying. Whether Alonso truly believes that he's got world championship capability, I don't really know or think so. Of course, Lance Stroll's generally had a pretty rough time against teammates in his career, but in fairness, his teammates have usually been rather good. Last season, of course, he was up against Vettel, and if you look at the numbers, this is average qualifying gap over the course of the season. Vettel and Stroll were very close. The closest were Russell and Hamilton, then it was the closest were Gasly and Tsunoda, then it was Russell and Hamilton with a very small gap between them, 0.08% in terms of lap time. Leclerc was quite significantly ahead of Sainz. Verstappen obviously destroyed Perez. Ocon and Alonso were kind of close. Norris destroyed Riccardo. Bottas generally destroyed Joe, although he got better towards the end of the season. And then, of course, Albon, Latifi was a bit of a non-contest. But in terms of the third closest driver pairing was Vettel and Stroll. So it depends to some people how good they consider Vettel to be. But many rate Vettel very highly, and I think for very good reason. If you look at the top 5 drivers ever, you've got, I guess, Fangio, Senna, Schumacher, Hamilton. You've got to find a fifth. Probably will be Vettel in many people's eyes, full-time world champion. And if you consider Vettel to be very good, as I think he certainly was at the end of last season for sure, then you've also got to give Stroll his credit. Because yes, he gets into some incidents, but he does have his races where he's ahead of his teammate, where he's performing well in qualifying, in the race as well. And, to be maybe not so close in terms of points to Vettel, but in terms of pace, he was actually pretty much there or thereabouts over the season. Now, you can argue that Stroll gets some benefits in terms of strategy and even in terms of getting new updates to the car than maybe his teammates get, just because, daddy's money, he's daddy's kid, all this type of stuff, which maybe is arguable as well. And I'm not sure Alonso feels super threatened by Stroll, given the fact that, yes, he didn't beat Ocon in points last year, but definitely had a stronger season, I would say, on the whole, given the amount of points he arguably should have achieved. But yeah, still, what do you think about this statement? He has the possibility to be a world champion, has the speed, has the talent to achieve it. Not sure I fully buy that Alonso would say this if Stroll was just his teammate. Maybe he's just saying this this because of the relationship with Stroll and Lawrence Stroll and the fact that, you know, his money's coming in from Lawrence Stroll, he better be nice to his son, all this stuff. So I think that Alonso, like what he's saying, there is a point behind it, as in Stroll actually, I think, is better than people give him credit for, but is he good enough to be a world champion? Probably not. And, you know, if there is going to be a world champion at Aston Martin in the next couple of years, it's probably going to be Fernando Alonso, would be my guess on that one. But, you know, maybe Alonso's just saying this to maintain the kind of relationships over there as much as they possibly can before they battle it out on track for the upcoming season. Couple of quick notes before we close out here. Firstly, from McLaren Honda, I know that many McLaren fans will immediately wince at the thought of going back to the Honda partnership from a few years ago, but we know that Red Bull are coming up with Ford. We thought that Porsche were going to come in as well. They might not do anymore, but Honda have said for sure they're coming in 2026 again. Now, they're not going to be Red Bull because they're with Ford. So who do Honda partner with? There's one option that was rumoured that they could just buy out Alpha Tauri and just make that the Honda Works team and go for a full Honda F1 team. That's a possibility. The other option is they partner with McLaren. That's been talked about for a bit as well now. And yeah, they've apparently made initial contact about this potential partnership to happen from 2026 and beyond. And if that happens, some McLaren fans will be happy. Some McLaren fans might not be so happy looking about what happened back in the day, but also just one update to mention for you guys there. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.